Hello and welcome to NoCast by CMUBS, the podcast where knowledge meets inspiration. I'm your host, and I'm here to take you on a journey through ideas, insights, and stories that shape the world of business, research, and innovation. Each episode, we bring you thoughtful conversations, practical wisdom, and perspectives from experts and changemakers. Whether you're a student, a researcher, or simply someone who loves learning, this is your space to explore, grow, and stay inspired. Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive into today's episode and discover something worth knowing.
You know, when you think of a super successful CEO, what's the first image that pops into your head? It's probably someone bold, right? Decisive, charismatic, and just radiating confidence. We're kind of taught that confidence is what makes a great leader, that it's the secret sauce for success. But here's a question. What if that's only half the story? Is all that confidence, all that swagger, always a good thing for a company? Or for, its investors? We're going to dig into this because some new research shows that the answer is way more complicated than you might think. So let's talk about what's called the confidence paradox. It's this idea that while we absolutely love to celebrate bold, decisive leaders, there can be a hidden and sometimes really costly downside. A pretty fascinating study decided to tackle this head-on, trying to figure out when that confidence helps and when it actually starts to hurt. Okay, I know what you're thinking. How on earth do you scientifically measure something as fuzzy as confidence? I mean, it's not like you can just stick a thermometer in a CEO's ear and get a reading, right? It's a personality trait, which is a huge challenge for researchers. But the folks behind this study found a really clever workaround. Yeah, so instead of trying to read minds or hand out personality quizzes, these researchers looked at something way more tangible, the power structure inside the company itself. Their theory was pretty simple. The more power and influence an executive team has, the more structurally confident they are allowed to be. And to measure this, they came up with this brilliant little metric called the power-pay ratio. It sounds technical, but it's actually super straightforward. They just compared the total pay of the top execs, the C-suite, to the total pay of the entire board of directors, the very people who are supposed to be keeping them in check. And the logic behind this is what's so cool. A high ratio doesn't just mean the executives are making a lot of money. It suggests they have a ton of power and influence. It's basically a proxy for how free that executive team feels to act on their own confident ideas without a lot of pushback. So, what did they find? Well, the average power pay ratio across all the companies they looked at was 9.1. Just let that sink in for a second. On average, the top executive team was getting paid over 9 times more than their entire board of directors combined. I mean, wow. That points to a serious concentration of power at the top.
And at first glance, it really looked like all that power and confidence was paying off big time. The study's initial findings seem to confirm everything we tend to believe about strong, confident leaders.
Turns out, companies with a higher power-pay ratio, our stand-in for confidence, generally had a higher market value, so investors were bidding up their stock prices. They were also way more efficient with their assets. That's what return on assets, or ROA, measures. And they were more profitable, which we see in their return on equity, or ROE. So yeah, across the board, it looked like confidence was a total win.
And the researchers put it pretty plainly themselves. The data showed that confident execs tend to make strategic calls that boost both the stock price and the actual profits. So, it seems simple, right? Confidence is great for business. Case closed. Well, not quite.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. The researchers found that there's a kind of tipping point, a line that, once crossed, causes all those positive effects of confidence to fade away, or even flip and become negative. And it really comes down to 2 specific situations. On one hand, confidence is fantastic during stable, predictable times, especially for companies that are still growing. But on the other hand, that same confidence can become a huge liability during a major crisis, or for companies that are already at the peak of their industry. Let's take that first tipping point, a crisis. The study looked at what happened during the massive uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic. And guess what? That magic link between executive confidence and company performance just vanished. The bold, aggressive moves that work so well in normal times suddenly started to look like pure recklessness, and the positive effect on the stock price was gone.
And then there's that second tipping point. For companies that were already at the top of their game, super profitable, leaders in their field, the researchers found that more executive confidence added 0 extra benefit.
In fact, you can imagine how it could actually hurt, leading to complacency or maybe some ill-advised value-destroying vanity projects, just because there's no one around to say, hey, maybe that's not such a great idea.
So, what's the bottom line here? What does this mean for us in the real world? Well, this research gives us a much smarter, more nuanced way to think about leadership, and there are some really clear, practical takeaways.
If you're an investor, the lesson is crystal clear. Don't get blinded by charisma. That super confident CEO might be perfect for a growing company in a stable market, but they could be a massive risk during a recession or in a company that's already on top. For boards of directors, your job is absolutely critical. You have to be that counterbalance, that voice of reason against executive overconfidence. And for leaders themselves, it all comes down to self-awareness. Confidence is a tool, not a cure-all. You have to know when to use it and when to dial it back.
So the next time you see that bold, visionary CEO on a magazine cover, this research gives you a new lens to look through. Are you seeing a brilliant leader who's perfect for the moment? Or are you seeing a potential risk, just waiting for the wrong situation to come along? It really is a double-edged sword, and now you know exactly how to spot which side you're looking at.
Thank you for joining us on NoCast by CMUBS. We hope today's episode sparked new ideas and inspired your next steps. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to follow our podcast and stay connected so you won't miss the insights, stories, and meaningful discussions coming up next. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and see you in the next episode.